Hi, Tanya. How are you today?
I'm doing good, Erin. Saturday, can't complain. Springtime.
Yes, you can probably hear the birds out here in the yard. We'll see how this goes. If they're too loud,
They want to chime in.
that's perfectly okay with me. All right. So this is going to be something new that you and I and Chelsea talked about wanting to do a podcast, new podcast, and we're going to call it the Unscripted Equation.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to run through this really quick so that our audience knows kind of what to expect.
Unscripted.
Most of it will be unscripted.
It's in our brains.
Yeah, because we have to be that way anyway. Okay, so it's going to be weekly. We'll do a recording. It'll be pretty candid and expert-driven conversation between, myself, you, Tanya, and Chelsea. She's not here with us today. And we're going to be exploring the complex intersections of relationships, sexuality, behavior, societal roles. And we're going to be blending professional insights with real life situations and, some of our professional knowledge and personal knowledge. And we want for it to be pretty informal and pretty engaging. And our target audience is usually people around, the mid 20s, early 60s. Those are probably the people that would listen to us, but we welcome anybody. Of course, you do have to be at least 18 because some of the stuff that we talk about is going to be pretty explicit. We're going to be talking about things related to modern relationships, sexuality, psychological behavior, and how some of those things intertwine. And the format, it'll be all of us kind of taking turns and using our professional expertise. For example, Tanya, you're the mental health person in the group, and Chelsea is also. And I will be looking at things more from a sexuality perspective and relationship perspective. But all of those things pair very well. Like, for example, some of the topics might be related to gender roles and modern dating, polyamory, kink stuff, infidelity, and the research and theories associated with all of those things.
For sure.
We're going to be producing some what we call case studies, and we'll also have some informal discussion, challenging some of our thinking, some of the stuff that's out there that's pretty controversial. We'll still talk about those things. And unfortunately, sometimes the things may get political. Say, for example, we're talking about gender related material. Sometimes those things are in the political arena. And so it's not our intention to be political, just what we do for a living. A lot of it happens to be dragged into the political arena. And so we do hope that, as I mentioned, it's going to be pretty engaging. So we'll give people something to walk away with, like a homework or something like that.
It's all fun stuff. I
Yeah.
know, being on the streets doing the day-to-day sessions with people. I mean, this is what people are wanting to talk about. They want to talk about it, and then they're also afraid to bring it up. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that we can put this information out so those people that maybe feel afraid can still get some information
Yeah.
about what are healthy sexual practices, concepts, and giving some information about real happenings that I hear. I was laughing because you said maybe early 60s, and I have a client in her 70s who is still dealing with jealousy with her husband, and it makes me, it's like, well, hey, it can happen in your 70s too.
Yeah. That's actually a good thing. Like, being in a relationship that long, and you still have those feelings for the person that you initially got into a relationship with. So that's actually a good thing.
Mhm. Yeah, and we could talk about, right, like how, when does it become a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a shift, it's good to have feelings, but how are you dealing with them? So
Yes. Yeah. And remember, you and I were talking about how I brought up sometimes things get political.
mhm.
One of the interesting topics that we can eventually talk about is the relationship power dynamics, like in the professional setting. And then an article that I saw about how um, Democrats need to be more hot or
Oh
be
yeah.
good looking and have a little bit more scandal. And I was like, oh, okay, that will be interesting.
Well, that's assuming that Republicans are hot. Everybody has a opinion about who's hot, right?
Yeah.
I think Gavin Newsom is kind of hot. I mean, I think from a
California perspective.
yeah, Donald Trump, Gavin Newsom. That's there's a debate there.
They both got charisma. You have to give them that. They have charisma in different ways. So it's interesting to watch. All of it is interesting. All of the, I guess, from a psychological perspective, like
Yeah.
politics is interesting for us to watch, for us to observe, the different ships and all of that. It's just
and who also, what kind of, what is a beauty standard, right?
right.
Is it fake boobs, filler?
Mhm.
All of these plastic surgery type procedures, or are you talking about like natural beauty? I mean, does that even exist today? What do you find attractive? Because it's different for every person.
Yes. And that's what one of the articles said, that people are drawn to attractive people. We just naturally are. Psychologically, we just are. And so I guess that makes a lot of sense how that plays into politics, the visual of it. I can totally see that.
What about the people that are the familiarity effect, where they're attracted to the people that look like them?
I could see that too. I could
Maybe some narcissistic tendencies in there. It's like what?
You kind of have to have some narcissism if you're going to be a politician, because you're advertising yourself in order to get elected. You're doing everything to puff yourself up. So there has to be like at least a little bit of it.
For sure.
Yeah. So
we need a mental health professional to run for some sort of public office. That's my opinion.
I agree.
Like, there's a good combination of, just healthy balance of how we view people and what we're trying to achieve. I mean, not to say that every therapist is, on the up and up and ethical and moral, but I would argue that for the most part, at least Erin and I and Chelsea, we can speak for ourselves, and we try. We're here to better people's lives. We're not here to, judge and make rules that are detrimental to society. And so maybe Erin and I will be running sometime in the future.
I could see that. The senator, the sexologist senator from Texas. Like, imagine that.
They'll be like, and wow.
Just that would get the votes. People would have the cognitive dissonance going on, like, what? She's from Texas, trying to be a senator. She's a sexologist, like, whoa. And they're just going to assume like there's a bunch of scandal and stuff. So I could see it. Maybe.
I would love it. I would love to see the questions. Plus we talk to so many people over our career, and it becomes easier to see what is the underlying meaning of why people are asking a question. And,
Mhm.
I feel like we would be give a good fight at debating in some of these arenas. I think it would be awesome I'm going to vote for Erin.
I'll vote for Tanya.
Take them
I'll
down.
make sure I have some debate questions because I know how she operates. So I would know what questions to ask and how to ask them. So
It'll be like promoting positive sexual, relationships, and people just be like, "What? Not in Texas?" Yes, it happens in Texas.
especially in Texas. So don't be fooled. When they
Yeah.
say everything's bigger in Texas, assume that whatever it is, whatever liberal stuff people are doing elsewhere, it's happening here too. Give me a break.
For sure. There was a humongous STD outbreak in Houston over spring break. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's something like 42,000 people tested positive for different types of STD. From last year to this year, just during spring break. So yes, people are having sex, and we're trying to get you the information to not spread around STDs unknowingly, and protecting people. I mean, that's the whole point. Yes, have fun, but yes, be safe.
That's definitely going to have to be a huge topic, because that's, right here in our backyard, Houston. So we definitely need to tackle that one. And in the military, it's at different times they have spikes in the STIs. So we definitely should be talking about that.
For sure.
And so what are I'm going to name some of the topics that I'm interested in, and then I'll let you name some of the ones that where you believe you have expertise or just interest, like you plan on doing more research. Okay, so most people aren't aware that when we become therapists, because Tanya is a therapist and I'm a therapist, when we become therapists, like we get the general knowledge, like the requirements and all of that, in a master's program. And so when we get licensed, we can all, practice and diagnose and all of that. And it's like it's like a general practitioner, like a doctor, that has a general practice. We can also specialize. And so then we'll take stuff that we're interested in. Like if you're a regular therapist and you have an interest in working with trauma, then you do a whole bunch of trauma courses, and then that becomes one of your areas of specialty. Okay. And so what I've done, I want it for relationships and sexology, or the sexual stuff, to be an area of specialty as a therapist. And so I'm branching out and doing that. And then under that category, I'm doing consensual non-monogamy, the kink stuff, and relationship stuff. And then like the associated sexual functioning and pleasure. And that's just my niche. And so, and working with the military, those things as they apply to the military. And then, so what is your specialty if you're under mental health?
So, I don't know that we can necessarily get away from, and we should let people be aware that anything under this sexual health umbrella, unless there's a medical reason as to why you're having dysfunction in that area, most of that relationship is something that insurance is typically, unless it's tied to, anxiety, PTSD, depression, like one of those. I very much enjoy to have it. I like that the people I see, most of them are going to have insurance, which, I think is helpful, because that's one way to help pay for sessions. But I will say, if not 80% of the people that I see will have something about a relationship or intimacy issue, and so I don't know that we can ever get away from not talking about this topic. I do really love the power dynamics between the gender roles and how society shapes these expectations. And so we're all kind of walking around with this, already preloaded from when you were born, you were pink or blue, right? And you kind of unknowingly were subscribing to these gender roles. And as a female and identifying as a female, there's just so much. So I love the spectrum of how people can express themselves within a relationship. I've often joked about how I like to see the feminine male presenting and then the masculine female presenting in a couple. I think we've all kind of seen that where we're like, that's an interesting makeup of a couple. And it works. And so there's so many different types of setups for couples and why they work, what's driving them. And so I really like power dynamics, and that's a big topic of mine. And I tend to run into it a lot. It's just from a cultural perspective, being Latino and, kind of growing up traditional, I saw it with my own eyes in my family. And there's a lot there that I think will shape a person and once they become an adult and they're starting to have their relationships and what feels like they should be doing, but maybe they're not exactly comfortable with it. And so, and obviously, I really like working with getting the information out about what is safe sex, consensual sex, because I think there can be this, cloud around talking about it, sex, and people will end up making choices that can be detrimental to their partner. And so, sex can be fun and exciting and also safe, because nobody wants to end up with an STI. It's not fun having to take a pill or get a shot or get a laser procedure or something.
Or end up, in some bad situation where you're not safe, or you have someone stalking you, or that kind of stuff. And so I think we do need to have more conversations, the consent too, because you have to have consent when you're doing a lot of that stuff too online. So I think there can be a broad array of conversations that come up. And, like we mentioned, things that are happening in the mainstream, I guess for lack of better phrases, the permissiveness, the permissive attitude towards not having consent, the sex trafficking, those kind of things. And so, yes, it's an ugly topic, but you and I both know we have to have certain training in order to be licensed. In order to have our licenses renewed, we have to be familiar with, what does that look like? What does sex trafficking look like? Human trafficking, what does that look like? So I think it's important, if they're making us do that to maintain a license, we should be talking about it in public.
For sure. I the youth, I think it's very important for those that are just becoming of age, and not knowing necessarily how to navigate those discussions. There can be a secretive aspect to intimate relationships, and we want to just be able to give the younger people a step up when it comes to enjoying and being a respectful and also, exciting partner. Because, that's what it's about, right? It's not, I think we can all remember our first experience. And,
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody can. And, there's some things that we probably wish we would have talked about or known before going into that experience. And so yeah, anything within I especially love the gender roles, because I feel like that is a lot of the crux of what people are disagreeing on, where their struggles come in. And it doesn't have to be that way. People should be enjoying themselves more than they are fighting about what needs, right? These expectations of, well, I'm the man, or, women using manipulation to get what they want. And there's so much of that in media, right? Like,
Yeah.
we see these power dynamics, and people don't realize, especially the young, they don't realize, like, that's not healthy. We're here to say
it's not even about the gender. It's about your choice of behavior. If you're choosing to be aggressive, it doesn't matter whether you're male or female or how you identify as far as gender, you're being a bad person. That's about your choice. So I think it is important for us to talk about it and separate it, dissect all of it, because there is some overlap, and then there's some, but the overlap, I think, is there because we've been programmed for that. And so for us to surgically take it apart, I think that's important for the public.
For sure.
So
it's been going on for decades, right? Decades and decades.
Longer than that.
Yeah. Centuries.
Yeah, I mean, think about like the way that Greek society, long time ago, how the way that older men treated younger boys, like that was a thing. It was accepted. And then now moving forward to where we are now, it's, oh my goodness, if that happened, and it's something equivalent to Epstein files or something. So
cougars, right? Now there's cougars.
Right. Yeah. So like that, it's illegal. Like it's a complete shift in our society and all of that. So we have to, I think it's important to look at it from that lens, like what was being done or what was acceptable, then, and then what made us shift to where we are now, to where it is, it's criminal behavior, like to do certain things, and we frown upon it because it's labeled criminal behavior. Or do we frown upon it because we're hurting somebody? Like it's fascinating.
And plus, we're at an interesting time where women are now less reliant on men, and they're having I wouldn't say they're less feminine, but their strength is more evident in how they can take care of themselves. And so, we talk about the male loneliness epidemic. I was at the grocery store the other day, and I don't know if I just started paying attention, but I noticed more men, like, just with their little single small basket shopping around looking for their food. They're kind of forced into also doing some of the things that maybe in the past were mostly done by women, going grocery shopping, having to cook for themselves, having to wash their own clothes, this emotional labor and household labor that is now being more spread out, and how it's making men feel about having to do all that. And women, really putting their foot down as to what they're going to want to put up with. They're no longer needing a man's income as much as the past. And so it's an interesting time for us currently. And that's exciting in terms of, those traditional gender roles. So yeah.
I agree. And like you mentioned earlier, um, it's what works for each couple or threesome, throuple, whatever. It's what works for them. It's not about somebody else's perception of the gender or the relationship style. It's what works for them. How are they getting their exploration and security needs met? And
Yeah.
they determine that. It's not up to somebody else to look in on that and say, well, we're judging you and that's not right. And, bringing all that into it. It's whatever works for whoever, as long as you're not, exploiting people and, kids involved. Yeah.
Oh, but that there's going to be those people, right? They're going to be like, judging. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't enjoy sex with more than one person. It's like, well, maybe you don't want to, but I
Right.
may want to, right? And so, yeah, I mean, where does that come from, right? There's all that thought of you shouldn't have sex with more than one person and enjoy it, where it comes from a multitude of things. A lot of it is tied to religion. A lot of it is tied to your own family setup, how your parents were raised to think about relationships, how they talk to you about it. And, we would like for people to think for themselves about what do you want, right? Like, what do you want in life? And because people coming to us, or I know, right, if they're coming to us as mental health practitioners, I wish they were just coming to us as like, hey, spice up my life. That's the rarity here. They're mostly coming to us because it's like, well, she nags too much, or he doesn't do the dishes. He doesn't help me with the kids. So, people are coming in when they have an issue to overcome. They're not necessarily happy. Most people come in, it's like one drag the other one in. It's like this last stitch effort. We're going to try counseling. It's like, oh, great. Let's,
They're here under duress.
Yes. But it is enjoyable. I will say, because as much as we in our mind think that everybody else thinks like us, and I'm talking about, it happens to everyone. It's our ego, right? I'm here to tell you, no one thinks exactly alike. And what you think that they're thinking is probably not entirely correct. And you should communicate and ask questions, because so many, that's like, right. I mean, the second biggest, if not the biggest, one of the second, right up in there. They can't talk to each other about what they think is happening. Everybody's just kind of like walking around grumpy at the other person. It's like, well, did you talk to him about it? No. All right.
I often ask people, I said, well, so you have that internal dialogue going. It doesn't seem like that's very helpful to keep all that in your head. You're having all these conversations up here, and the person that needs to hear all of that is sitting right next to you.
Yeah.
And then you're mind reading, well, I'm not going to say it because this is what I think my partner's going to do and how they're going to behave and what they're going to say. I said, well, that's a lot of mind reading and supposing and all of that. And it's so easy to just spit it out.
Or they want us to be like the referee.
Yes.
Right? And we're like, well, what do you think? We like shift over the words.
Right.
Let's do a mud battle.
But yeah, I think we're going to have, this will get better as we go along. Like, like today, I'm getting used to what it will sound like if I'm outside and the birds are chirping, or if it's cloudy like today. But we'll figure it out. We're just trying to, um, decide on what the format should look like, and then giving the audience an idea of some of the topics. And people are welcome to, contact us and come up with topics, because we want for it to be pretty engaging. And we know that everybody's not going to agree with what we say. What we say, a lot of times it's going to, like, the research stuff, we'll make sure that people have that you have access to the legitimate references that we're using. And some of the stuff will be, like I said, professional, and then some of it's personal opinion. And we get to do that. Okay. We don't want for this to just be, we're quoting statistics and research. We get to have an opinion about things.
Yeah. I look forward to ruffling some feathers.
I do as well.
On a grander scale.
I do as well.
This is how people learn,
Mm-hmm.
Or they don't, and they just stay in the rigid beliefs. But it's going to be fun either way. And hopefully, people will take away things that they didn't know about, right?
Absolutely. And as I always say, the only place a woman should have wrinkles is in the brain. So when you're engaging in controversial topics and debate and all of that, you're developing wrinkles in the brain. So that's a good thing.
The smooth brain. Whew.
It's not a lot of effort being put there.
Like,
well, all right. Well, I think this will wrap it up for this session. And Tanya and I are going to come up with some other, it'll be more organized next time we record.
Mm-hmm. Do we know what we're going to get into next week already? Can give them like a teaser.
Let's see. I saw a couple of articles that I wanted to dig into. Let's see. Why sexual novelty doesn't have to overwhelm long-term couples. That sounded like a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Is it normal to think about sex this much? That's a topic I want to talk about. The people always ask the question, is this normal? Am I normal? So that could be one of our first topics.
Yeah, is right. Is there such a thing as sex addiction?
Right. Yeah, that would be a really good one as well. So we've got several that we can dive into, and we're going to be pulling articles that are like this year and maybe within the last 2 years. We'll pull those kind of articles and then make sure, and we're just talking about them. We're not like promoting anything. We're just looking at what's in the mainstream right now. And then we're making a choice to have an engaging conversation about it.
Yeah. So we look forward to people sending in their questions and comments and concerns and
right,
general just bitching or whatever.
Right.
It'll be good either way.
I agree. So see you all next week.
Bye-bye.